Hi, and welcome back to the Senior Network. We are now joined by Lindsay Roberg, Executive Director, Friends of Carolina Hospice. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
And Brian's back with us. And before we move on, I had one question we were talking about a little earlier, and I know with Brian about when is it the right time to start planning. And you said, you know, it's just different ages, but maybe 65 or so. I also found that, you know, like when I hit 50, it was like a wake-up call. It's, you never know, right?
Right, no, I hear you.
You never know.
Right.
And so I started putting together an estate plan. And once you do it, it takes you through that whole process, and I think it opens your eyes to a lot of things. We talk about the levels of care coming down the road, hospice, just the options out there. So I always encourage anyone, the sooner the better, all the time.
Well, I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think now once you sort of go through the process once, you realize that there is so much to know.
If I could amend the statement just a little bit.
Sure.
Now, you know, we have kids going to school, back to school now, college kids.
Yes.
I have a 20-year-old that's going back to school now. You know, I prepared a power of attorney for her to sign for me, because imagine if something happened to her while she was away at school and I needed to tend to her business, or I needed to make some decisions for her regarding her health care.
Oh, I never even thought about that on the flip side.
So you know, it's not just estate planning for the 65 and older group. You know, it can be for children as well, and that's a good scenario where maybe a will isn't necessary, but having a power of attorney in place might be a good idea.
For adult children.
For adult children, yes.
Yeah.
You'd never think of it.
State to state, are there a lot of differences when it comes to the way the law reads?
There are a lot of similarities. So that is a very popular question. As you imagine, in Beaufort County, so many people move to Beaufort County from someplace else. And it's a very common question that we receive. Is my document from Pennsylvania legal in South Carolina? And the answer is typically yes. But it's a very difficult answer to give definitively if I don't have the document in front of me, because different states have different rules, have different laws, but for the most part a document from another state will be valid and can be used in South Carolina. It's not true if you hear someone tell you, your neighbor or maybe even your accountant, that says, well, now you're in South Carolina, you have to have all new documents made. That's not necessarily the case. But I would add to that, though, you should bring them to a local South Carolina attorney so he can at least review them. And that's what we spend a lot of time reviewing documents. And our objective is to be able to tell the clients that come in, your document from Pennsylvania is fine, you don't need a new one. Or if there's something wrong with it, we do point it out.
You know, it's interesting. You talk about at what age do we come and talk about elder care and things like that. I want to kind of shift it to you, Lindsay, as far as hospice. At what point in time is it time to talk hospice? My dad's a doctor, and I grew up with hospice as part of life, the life cycle. But knowing when it's appropriate, I think, is a tough decision when faced with it in the real life.
Right.
So talk us through that.
Well, I think, excuse me, I think one very important thing to realize is hospice isn't just for elderly people. We have children that are in hospice. So there is no time that is too soon, I think, to make sure that you know exactly what your wishes are. For myself, when I was 20, I decided to get my own advance directives. That way, there would be no question of what I wanted. And that's a lot of what we see is, you know, when we're in a critical state with hospice coming in, families are distraught. You have the blended families like you talked about before, and everyone just simply wants to make the best decision. And when you're under stress, it's very hard. So if you have a document that says, I do want this, I don't want that, even down to the 5 wishes with music choices at funerals, I think is really important. And so take the guesswork out of it. And when you're younger, it's not as hard because you're not as emotionally vested, or it's not as close. Let me ask you a question about hospices. Are there criteria that you meet in order to qualify for hospice? There are, and that's another big myth or misconception is that hospice is only for cancer patients, but it actually is for anybody with a terminal illness or who can't meet 3 out of 6 of their ADLs. So
activities of daily living.
You got it. You got it. Yes. So there's a lot of patients who we have who may have Alzheimer's, who may have some comorbidities. So it's just a case-by-case situation. And so what I say is if you're thinking of it, just call and we'll come out. And if we can't take you as a patient, we can certainly help you with other resources in the community.
And what would the role of hospice be within the continuum of care at that point?
So hospice will go anywhere where the patient calls home. So it can be an assisted living, it could be a skilled, it could be at your home. We have homeless patients occasionally. And really our goals are to make sure that your wishes are carried out. And so we go by whatever your advanced directives are and go and make sure that we're working with your family, working with your physicians, and continuing that care.
Well, you said something that I'd like to ask you about, and that is working with the family. So you're not just working with the patient, you're also and I'm sure you do that too, working with family members.
Right, we do. We work with the whole family unit. And
what does that look like? I mean, what could I expect as a family member if I have a terminal illness, and we are part of the same family? Are you there to kind of support, to guide, to educate?
Right, we are, and it's constantly revisiting what the goals of care are. You know, what is your greatest concern? What is your greatest need? And we help you to get there. And so it's even working with the family after the patient has passed. It's, you know, the bereavement and all the grief work that goes into that, and working with the finances and making sure that those things are all carried out. So we're not just there with the patient. And I think that's something that's really, as a patient, it gives you a sense of relief because you know your family's going to be taken care of after you're gone as well. And so, you know, just working with emotional support and all those good things.
It makes so much sense. We're going to take a quick break and we're going to come back and continue this conversation.